Korea was probably the most intense fighting that British troops took part in during the Cold War. Indeed, any battle that I can think of in the recent past has always been compared to Korea, and it being the hardest fighting that British troops have had since Korea. So this forgotten war probably deserves to be better remembered. So let's start at the top. He's wearing the cap comforter. No beret, no helmet, just a rolled woolen tube. Issued during the Second World War, still going strong. It was ideal in Korea for the biting wind. You could pull it down over your ears, stuff it under your helmet. I used to wear mine as a neck warmer. It's practical. Something that you needed in Korea. Now, there is no face on this mannequin, which in many ways works. It's not one man, it's every man. And not only that, it kind of, for me, symbolises the forgotten war in Korea. But moving along, we've got the jacket. Now that doesn't look like battle dress, and it isn't. It's American issue. Now in the early days in Korea, British kit wasn't available. The troops were deployed from Hong Kong and had jungle greens. Korea wasn't a summer war. It was cold, it was wet, it was muddy. So the British were struggling, and logistics always take time to deploy. Korea was a very quick deployment. So the end result was we went through the Americans for equipment, such as the jacket, the trousers, and the shirt. And let's be honest, I'll put a bet there were probably extra layers worn underneath at some point in the cold of Korea. Now, worn over that is 37 pattern webbing. It's the standard stuff, sturdy, functional, no nonsense. You've got the 2 ammo pouches at the front, water bottle, entrenching tool at the back, which aren't really visible here. Now, they would also have had Bren gun magazines chucked into the ammunition pouches and grenades, which meant most of the ammunition, like the Second World War, would have been carried in bandoliers. Now, lower down, we can't see the boots. I can't tell if he's wearing British or American boots, but you needed good boots. This was a lesson we relearnt in the Falklands. Cold, wet feet, trench foot, not very good. But there were things that you could do to do something about this. Now this white square down the bottom is quite interesting. This was actually a handkerchief, and numbers of these were dropped by the North Vietnamese on United Nations positions to encourage them to surrender. I like the concept because, let's be brutally honest, when we're talking dropping leaflets, they're not going to be retained for long. The only times I've seen them tended to be retained was when toilet paper was short. But this is something that might actually have been retained. And obviously at least one was, because it's ended up in the museum. As British troops pushed north, there were issues. It was getting colder. They're moving into the mountains. And as a result, mittens were issued. Now these are, were sometimes known as 29th Brigade gloves. 29th Brigade is a little bit further down the line. These were issued earlier than that. And they are a white cotton inner and a leather outer mitten. Now these were essential. We've mentioned about feet having problems, and over boots were issued. These were intended to work over knitted gloves, which were the standard issue at the time. it kind of shows you the fact that we actually have 3 layers on the hands. Now, the role of medical teams in Korea is fairly well known thanks to MASH, but it's often forgotten it wasn't just Americans. The Queen Alexandra's Royal Army Nursing Corps, the Quarank, were there, and these 2 medals belonged to Lieutenant Georgina Johnston, um, issued in 1954, and consist of the Korea Medal and the United Nations Korea Medal. Uh, it's appropriate in some ways that, I suppose, forgotten troops there in a forgotten war actually are commemorated here in the National Army Museum. Ask anybody to name a battle in Korea, and from British perspective, the only 2 that anybody will probably ever be able to tell you will be the last stand of the glorious Gloucesters and possibly the Hook. Now, the Gloucesters, or the Gloucestershire Regiment, fought a rather nasty engagement at Gloucester Crossing, and the end result was the battalion was overrun. Now, this spoon belonged to Private James Wood, who actually made it when he was a prisoner of war. And it is very significant how many of the Gloucesters were actually captured. They fought until there was no option. There are accounts of fighting even hand to hand when ammunition ran out. And really, that's again another story that should be remembered. Taking us back almost full circle to where we started with the Middlesex Regiment, we have alongside the American combat knife a walking stick that was used by Brigadier Code, the commander of 27 Infantry Brigade, to which the Middlesex Regiment belonged, later 27th Commonwealth Infantry Brigade. Very common for officers to carry walking sticks. They are great for pointing, and they are quite a convenient little aid when you're walking around, particularly in hilly terrain. So it's another interesting little thing to see, which means when we look at this exhibit, we've got, I think, in a tiny cabinet, a heck of a lot of history. There's so many little things there. I could do hour-long videos on all of these. In the future, I may well do. But I hope that's been of interest to you. And if it has, please like and comment. And if you really enjoy my work, please subscribe. And I'll see you soon for another video.